to another edition of Across the Conference, presented by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios. I am Ari Temkin alongside Sydney Staples. How are you, Sid?
I'm good. How are you?
Is this a Canadian tuxedo? Did you dress yourself thinking you were wearing a Canadian tuxedo today?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
However, because there is some blue, whether that shows up on camera or not, I think we could classify this brownish blue denim as
brownish
a Canadian
blue
tuxedo.
would be a stretch. It's a translucent brown. There's lots of different colors in there. I may be a bit colorblind, but I don't see the blue. But
The people can decide.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. We'll
In the
leave it to the
comments,
people.
does Sydney's amazing getup characterize as a Canadian tuxedo?
Thank you.
The people need to know. A Canadian tuxedo, denim on denim on denim, but is it a blue specific colored denim, or is it a brownish?
I'm going to deem this a Canadian tuxedo, and I'm proud of it. Thank you.
You are a trendsetter. All right, on today's show, we've got a lot to get to, including the latest on swimming and diving, gymnastics and wrestling. But wanted to start off today talking about women's basketball in the Big 12. And the Big 12 has been a very, very good women's basketball conference. It's not at the elite of the elite, as we've seen undefeated national champions, in recent history, but it's been up there. And TCU last year was really good. They brought in another great transfer portal class this year, Sid. But I say all that to say, of the usual suspects who we expected to be towards the top of the conference, the Big 12 in 2026 is a league of parity. I mean, Texas Tech, with not much expectations for them this year and a huge year for Krista Gerlich, they're the best team in the Big 12 right now.
No kidding. I think there's something to say about Baylor women's basketball. Their head coach, what they were able to do last season, what they can carry into this season. But our top four in the current Big 12 conference standing, three of them, Texas Tech, TCU, and OSU. I'm surprised, but in a good way. I like to see some different names at the top there that are performing at the level that they are.
Yeah, and look, I mean, TCU has become a huge, banner carrier for the Big 12, if you will. And this year's no different, with Marta Suarez and Olivia Miles sort of leading the charge for TCU women's basketball. They're great. And you mentioned Baylor. I mean, that's one of the top brands in the Big 12. Nikki Collins done a fantastic job at Baylor. It's tough, though, when expectations are to win national championships. And, I mean, they started off the year. They played overseas against Duke in a big-time matchup for the conference. And then we saw on Monday, despite a loss for TCU against Ohio State, they got to play in the Coretta Scott King Classic on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So huge feature for the Big 12 with TCU playing Ohio State, during the conference slate to go out of conference and play one of those showcase games for the Big 12.
Taylor Bigby, I mean, her buzzer beater right at the end of the third quarter, that gives you life heading into that fourth. Now, unfortunately, they fell. But there's a player in Olivia Miles, as we discussed, she used to be at Notre Dame, coming here to Fort Worth. It gives that life to a program that loses a Haley Van Lith, last season and everything like that. And I even think really beyond that, when Coach Mark tells an Olivia Miles, I'm going to let live loose, that to me, anybody in the Big 12 conference needs to pay attention and needs to be ready. Good luck guarding her. I want to see a TCU finishing at the top of the conference with the level of talent that they have on their roster.
And look, with Haley Van Lith last year, now Olivia Miles this year, what he's doing at TCU is really, really good for the future trajectory of the program, because he's always going to be aligned to get players like this, big-time playmakers, where it's like you can come in and sell them on, come be the next Haley Van Lith, become a top 10 WNBA pick, after you're really having a tough time at LSU the previous year for HVL. And then same with Olivia Miles. She could have gone to the WNBA. Instead, she spends one more year. She goes to TCU. She leaves from Notre Dame and, in position to be a playmaker again for TCU. Yeah. Oklahoma State, Staley Hurd's coming off an incredible two-game stretch here where, she had a triple-double against Iowa State. Iowa State's maybe the biggest surprise, disappointment so far in the Big 12 because they've been playing for a substantial portion without Addie Brown. But back-to-back wins for Oklahoma State against Kansas, who's also a hugely disappointing team so far in the Big 12. And then Iowa State, Staley Hurd's been phenomenal in those two games. And J.C. Hoyt, since coming over for Oklahoma State's been fantastic. And then Molly Miller, when you talk about major surprise stories of the Big 12 this year, I mean, Texas Tech being undefeated at the top of the Big 12 so far, huge surprise story. And Arizona State under Molly Miller, year one. what she did at Grand Canyon, she's doing again at Arizona State. She's magnetic, she's electric, she's an unbelievable coach, and she's got Arizona State as one of the major surprise stories of the Big 12 this year.
Now, TCU is the highest ranked team in the conference right now. Texas Tech was once one of just 3 teams across the nation to be undefeated. And then OSU. Let's go back to Staley Hurd, because when you earn Player of the Week after a triple-double over Iowa State, when you log your third or the third triple-double in school history just this past weekend, hello, talk about that excitement for the Pokes. And even more so, she had a third consecutive 20-point outing in OSU's win at Kansas during the midweek of last week.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know how much parity there is across the sport at large. There seems to be, but we still see dominance at the top. Yeah. It's tough to crack through, and hopefully the Big 12 can have a couple of teams that will at least compete for 1 seeds to get an opportunity to maybe get to a Final Four, because that was what got in the way of TCU last year. It's what got in the way of Baylor having to go up against some of those behemoths at the top of the sport. But there's a lot of parity in the Big 12 right now.
When you have other teams outside of Baylor and TCU that are carrying the weight of the conference right now and performing at the level that they are, it gives me confidence looking into a postseason to think, wait a second, the Big 12 can again have a ton of representation. Think about volleyball when we were talking a few weeks ago,
right.
Just how prominent they were in postseason play. Same here with women's basketball. I look forward to it.
Yeah, and some of the most premier players in the country are playing in the Big 12. It is a fun conference to watch, and even more fun when you recognize that it's not just chalk, that there's major surprise stories across the league. I also wanted to sit into swimming and diving because this was a big week where the Big 12 held kind of a Big 12 West, Big 12 East competition.
Is it NBA All-Star?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
And hard to figure out from a Big 12 West versus Big 12 East perspective where each would fall. But I mean, Arizona State, we know on the men's and women's side, that's the power program for swimming and diving, and they certainly dominated on the Big 12 West competition. But the Big 12 East was an opportunity to kind of see new blood, and Houston in a event that they hosted showed out well. Cincinnati too. So really an interesting week from a swimming and diving standpoint because we got to really see the showcase of both the West and East of the Big 12.
It's interesting to think about the conference being broken up in that way because I don't think this is something I've seen before in any other sport.
Makes a ton of sense,
yeah.
Especially in sports, where you're trying to limit the travel, trying to make it more conducive, more cost effective. And look, I mean, it's clear that the Big 12 West is the advantageous one. It's the dominant force because of Arizona and Arizona State. So I think you kind of get to gauge how good the rest of the conference is based on how Kansas finishes third on the women's side in the Big 12 West competition. So it's like suddenly we look at Kansas and say like, wow, that's a lot better than maybe we expected them to be. Houston, another team that doesn't garner a ton of headlines, but dominating on the East side. So I think it's geographically shows sort of like, all right, who else can bang with the big boys, if you will? But then also on the East side, like who else do we not really think a ton about if we're sort of rating the top of the Big 12?
Now, I'm curious to know what our updates are on the mat in terms of wrestling, but you guys are going to have to stay tuned until we talk about that in our next segment.
Let's get on the mat. Wrestling and gymnastics all coming up next, plus our Under the Radar feature for this week. It's all coming up as we continue here on Across the Conference with Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin. This is Across the Conference, presented by Allstate on Big 12 Studios. Welcome back to Across the Conference, presented by Allstate, along with Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin. Great to have you with us. Swimming and diving, wrestling, gymnastics, we're in the heart of that season. And Sid, before we get to Under the Radar, let's talk a little wrestling.
Yep.
In terms of wrestling duels over the last week, the most consequential duel was Missouri defeating Arizona State. And just kind of big picture temp check on the Big 12 in wrestling, you've got Iowa State and Oklahoma State, and then everybody else. But the question is Missouri in that tier along with Oklahoma State and Iowa State? Time will tell when we get more consistent conference duels, but at least right now, Missouri, after beating Arizona State, looks to kind of be in that picture a little bit, maybe that second tier behind Iowa State and Oklahoma State, but we'll find out how close they are to them when they meet.
And even on, I'm thinking the mat in terms of gymnastics. Now, we haven't had head-to-head meeting duels like that when it comes to any of those members of the Big 12, but we can also get a temperature check and see, all right, how has the team done so far this season? And then even when you look at these quad meets where you can get a feel for maybe outside of the conference where you're standing. And then I think about who could be the best of Utah. Well, of course, it's going to be the Utes. Now, them taking on the likes of, BYU, Southern Utah, Utah State. After the previous meet where they were hosting LSU and the rest, at least you can have that home state dominance and everything like that. But Ari, I'm going to throw you into the deep end here.
Okay.
Let's talk swimming. You're under the radar swimmer. Who is it?
Yeah, and we talked in the last segment about the West-East competitions in swimming and diving, and so we talked so much at the high level of the sport about Arizona State, and here comes Kansas swimming and diving, finishing third at the West Championships, which is substantial because, again, Arizona State is a national championship contender. They're players in the national on the national landscape. Arizona's right there in terms of the Big 12. So for Kansas to finish third is pretty substantial on the West side of things. And, when you look at it, Lydia Lafferty, right there in marquee events with some of the top swimmers in the sport in the Big 12. So, certainly Kansas swimming and diving is under the radar. And if I'm identifying, one athlete in particular, be Lydia Lafferty, who is very under the radar. And her times, what she's doing from a competition standpoint, close to the top swimmers in the Big 12 at Arizona State and Arizona. So huge finish there under the radar for Kansas. What about you, Sid?
Ooh, now mine, she was voted on by her teammates as the most likely to live the longest in an apocalypse. And I went,
oh,
ooh, okay, you've got to be my girl for this. So Snudda Collins of Texas Tech women's basketball.
By the way, is that something you'd want to be known as?
You know what?
Sydney
Why
Staples,
would you not?
she's the one that I'd want to survive, that I'd know would survive the longest in a post-life apocalypse.
Do you want to be known as the opposite? Somebody who would be the first to go?
It's fair point.
Uh-huh. Now you pick up what I'm putting down here. But listen, not only is Snudda Collins in terms of her scrappiness and her play, when you are the only player in the country coming off the bench in every game and averaging 14 points, that is a player that when I think of a sixth woman on a court, hats off to her.
Yeah, that takes a certain person, right? Like the ego gets in the way from times, and I think basketball more so than any other sport, ego can derail a team. Because 5 players play at once, one ego can really completely derail a team. She's like the glue guy, if you will, for them because, the ability to come off the bench, provide a scoring jolt, like she should be starting, but she comes off the bench. And again, it's not about who starts, it's about who finishes these games. And that Krista Gerlich's going to want her on the floor in the crucial moments of these games because she can do everything. She could rebound, she could defend, she could score.
Yep, and you know who else can do just about everything, including score the first perfect 10 of the season for women's gymnastics?
Avery Neff,
oh, yeah.
One of the top athletes in the Big 12 overall in any sport. Avery Neff joins us next as we continue here across the conference. Avery Neff from the Red Rocks Utah gymnastics team joins us. Along with Sydney Staples, I am Ari Temkin. This is Across the Conference, presented by Allstate on Big 12 Studios.
Welcome, and everyone, please meet Avery Neff, a Utah gymnast. Now, you had the first perfect 10 of the season. When we saw that come across on socials, everything, wow, okay, we're so excited. Could you walk us through that vault, both physically and mentally? What was going on?
Yeah, we had kind of not had the greatest start off to the day. And so I think I was really just focusing on doing big gymnastics. The girls before me, I was telling them before they went up, don't try to go for the sticks. We don't really need these huge, amazing scores. Just do your normal gymnastics. Do big gymnastics. Because sometimes when you try to, go for the stick, a lot of time that's when you kind of take step backwards. And that's where we don't want to be. So I was like, just do big gymnastics. That's what we want. We want big vaults and things like that. So I think my mental preparation, I was just thinking, I'm just going to make this the biggest vault I can, and I'm just going to break open early. And me and Mike have actually, my vault coach has been working on just elongating my vault to make it super high because I have so much power, and it's just been pulling me so far. And so my first meet out of the season, it was like this crazy, like huge vault, but like pushing so far back. So Then we've been working together and trying to make it go taller and, making it pop up a bit more. And, I think that was kind of just my mindset that day, was push really hard through my shoulders to make it pop up and then just spread open and wait for the landing. So,
In watching it back, I mean, you knew right away, didn't you? And have you had that feeling and then not had it be a perfect 10 before?
um, probably. I feel like there's been times like in club where I knew that it was good or things like that. But the thing is in club gymnastics, you had a 10-1 start value. So I feel like if you were to stick your vault, normally you'd get around a 10 because you had a tenth to buffer for like
Mhm.
form or error, things like that. So I had a few 10s in club, but I never really felt perfect. And so in college, like I think right as I landed, I just was like, well, if this isn't a 10, I don't know if I'm ever going to be perfect then, because I knew in my heart that it was really, really good. So I think it was just really good to see it kind of come into place. So.
What makes for a perfect 10? We can talk vault, but in all of the other events, what are judges looking for in order to hand something like that out?
Yeah, I mean, every event is different. There's so many different key elements that you have to have on each event to make it a perfect 10, But that's a pointed toe, even. It's straight legs. It's how much height you're getting, how much or where you're landing. If you stick the landing, that's great. But if you have any like bobbles on top, or if you have an arm swing or things like that, if your legs are a little bit uneven, if your knees are bent, if there's so many key elements that can go into it, but you have to make it truly perfect in order for it to be that 10. So.
What makes a Yurchenko 1.5 so difficult for some people who are going to be watching that might not know gymnastics as well? Maybe watch it every 4 years with the Olympics. Why is Yurchenko 1.5 so difficult?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many years when I started club gymnastics where most people in clubs didn't do a 1.5. So the difficulty of the skill is already hard enough, and it's a blind landing. So when you're popping out of a 1.5, a full, you get to see the ground practically the whole time. And so it's easier to stick a full because you get to see where you're gonna land. And a 1.5, it's a complete blind landing. You don't see where the ground is. You kind of have to just open up and hope it's there. And, I think that's what makes it one of the scariest things, because especially if you land on straight legs, like that's even scarier, because if you're a little bit behind, your legs are straight, you're blowing out a knee. So there's so many different elements going into it that could be really dangerous, but also it's just a hard skill in general to get it to, one, get super high off the vault table and you're launching off of your arms, and two, not seeing anything when you're coming out of it.
Awesome. Okay, my last question for you. Do you think either of your brothers, Boston or Carson, could do anything that you're doing in gymnastics?
Oh, that's a crazy question because my brothers are actually very athletic. And my oldest brother, Boston, he is like, he has a natural gift. It's actually really crazy. He taught himself how to flip in general, and he can like huck triple backflips on snowboards and with no teaching at all. Like the most unreal, like, athlete I've ever met. And I think if he had a lot of training when he was younger, he could have been a really good men's gymnast. Maybe he's kind of taller, so I don't know about that. But yeah, I feel like he could have, not Carson though. I love him to death, but he is not coordinated at all. He cannot do that.
Yeah, but even
So
the most coordinated people can't pull off these. I mean, it's not a knock. Like
yeah,
if I would have answered for you, I'd be like, no, no chance. Not many people on
yeah,
earth can do that. Are you kidding?
yeah, yeah.
Last thing for me, looking at your IG page, you've got this great reel. I want to try everything and anything. If you could try one thing, what would it be? And it's just a lot of really sick. I mean, you're wakeboarding. Is that what you're wakeboarding? Are you wake surfing? Is that what you're
Wake
doing?
surfing,
Yeah, wake
yeah.
surfing, and you're riding a
Mhm.
roller coaster, and you're off-roading, and you're driving a plane, flying a plane.
Yes.
What are you doing in that? Can you just take us through everything you're doing in that? And what was the most fun? Horseback riding? I'm looking through it again.
Yes. So I think there's horseback riding, there's flying a helicopter, there's wake surfing, there's I don't want necessarily know what to call it, but it's like rope swinging.
Yeah.
And then I flipped off that.
You jumped through like a
And
cave or something. It looks really
yeah,
famous. I
yeah,
didn't recognize what that was, but it looks awesome.
yeah, it's in Lake Powell. Sometimes they take it down, but just for safety reasons, but every once in a while you can find it up. So that's really fun. That's my favorite place on earth actually is Lake Powell. So
All right. What have you not done that you want to do when it comes to doing everything and anything?
oh my gosh, there's so many actually. I want to go skydiving so bad.
Me too.
I want to go. This is gonna sound crazy, but one of my I've been obsessed ever since I flew that helicopter. I've been obsessed with just helicopters in general and just the thrill in it. And I want to go so badly in a Red Bull helicopter where they do a backflip. I want to do that so bad, and I don't know who can get me to do that with them, but I want to ride in that so badly. I know it's crazy, and I'd probably never meet them till I get in that plane, and I'd have full trust in them, which is maybe not the best thing, but also a good thing that I trust them. I don't know, but that's one of my biggest. I want to try that so bad.
Avery's
I
a
wanna-
thrill seeker, Sid. She's
Yeah,
a big time
yeah.
thrill seeker.
Yes.
Avery, I can't even do a somersault. So I'm gonna let you do that in that red
Yeah.
helicopter. I'll be waving from the bottom. Hey, you're doing great up there.
Yes. I've always wanted to bungee jump too, off of a super
Ooh.
tall bridge. I've always thought those are so cool.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Avery, we can't wait to see what you do the rest of this season. I can't wait to see what you do the rest of your life, okay? Because we'll be following you on social media, seeing what all of these you'll tick off of your life to-do list, okay?
Okay,
Good luck.
thank you.
Great stuff with Avery Neff, one of the top athletes in the Big 12, regardless of sport. City Staples, Ari Tepkin, across the conference, presented by Allstate. And Sid, Avery Neff is a big-time thrill seeker.
I know that you don't have an interest of jumping out of an airplane, but I would love to see her do that, okay? I'd love for her to be able to cross her off that bucket list. Or I have one even better for her, okay? The Red Bull UGA gymnast, Lily Smith, just competed her beam routine on top of a 52-story building. So, how do we make it possible that Avery does her vault on top of that high of a building, or maybe even higher?
You got to go higher. You can't.
You might as yes, you're right.
You
You
can't
have to
match
go higher.
that.
Of
You gotta
course.
outdo. If you're gonna outdo it, you gotta outdo it.
Okay, so let's add that to her to-do list of something to do in her life. Thrill seek. Try
Maybe she
something.
vaults from one building to another.
Stop it. She might become a stunt double after that. Are you kidding?
Check out her IG page. She's got a lot of that going on.
Yeah. Yes,
It's
she
incredible.
does.
Avery Neff, one of the best athletes in the Big 12, and certainly a lot of fun to talk to, and a major thrill seeker. All right, that'll do it for the show today. Thanks for joining us each and every week here. Thanks for going across the conference, presented by Allstate on Big 12 Studios.